Hello and welcome back to Over the Top News. This week I am joined by entertainer Mohamed Moretta. Yes, I know Mohamed is the most common name in the world, but this Mohamed is no ordinary person. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Tej. Thanks for having me.
So one thing really interesting, your name is Mohamed, but you're Jewish? It's a really great story. I just want to hear a little bit about it.
Well, I'm Dominican, Haitian, and Italian, born Jewish, with an Arabic first name and an Italian last name.
Extremely worldly.
I speak 5 languages and understand 7, but I love being a Jew named Mohamed because it gives me the opportunity to bring all of my ethnicities together in a way where I could just lead by example. My mother was pregnant 8 months in Brooklyn, New York, and a little old Jewish rabbi said, "You're going to have a son, name him Mohammed, spell it with an O and one M, it'll bring him good luck and he'll travel the world." And he was right on.
It's brought you a lot of good luck, and your worldliness has really helped you as an entertainer. So tell me a little bit about your really prolific music career.
Well, it's been a blessing. Because of my ethnic background, I have no musical boundaries. So for me, music is just music. At the end of the day, you know, we tend to categorize things to find a comfort zone, but it's all about the message, first and foremost, and the hook, so it's the melody. The irony is that one of the things that happens at a very young age is our ability to recognize melody. And we learn through melody. We learn through visuals as well. But you know, when you learn your ABCs, it's first the melody, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, and you can even sing songs in other languages that you have no idea what you're saying. Frère Jacques, or Frère, you know, it's a no-brainer.
That's awesome. And so you've worked with some really, really cool people in the music industry, from Dolly Parton to Kool and the Gang, Diana Ross. So who is your favorite group, individual to work with?
Well, that's a tough one to say. I can't say a specific favorite, but the one that I think that has made the most impact in my life has been Kool and the Gang. And I'm currently working and partners with Robert Kool-Bell, who's the founder and leader of the band. But I've been fortunate to have worked with many acts. I've worked with acts that I think you may have not known when I work with them, and then they became household names, for example. So to me, that's the real challenge, is discovering or working with somebody or artists at the beginning of their career. So it's like mad scientists, you know, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the world finds out about the act.
Tell me about Kool and the Gang. Is it true? Do they indeed celebrate good times?
More than that. They're the longest touring group in the history of music, longer than the Rolling Stones, without having to drop names. They're the most sampled band in the world, after James Brown, who's the most sampled artist. But more importantly, they're the only group in the world that has a song that's more popular than Happy Birthday. Celebration is 3 times more popular.
Played at every wedding, and an anniversary, bar mitzvah.
Can't say whatever the case, because everyone celebrates every day.
And that's who we are as humans. We celebrate.
Yeah, we should celebrate life.
So what exactly do you do with them? You've written, you've produced. Tell me a little bit about the specifics you work with.
Well, back in 1982, when Kool and the Gang were already superstars traveling the world and just crushing it, I was DJing at a club here in South Florida called Visions of Kendall at 107th and Kendall. And in those days, and even today, most DJs play extended versions of songs, because if you're going to dance, you're not going to dance to a 2-minute version of a song. And in the case of Get Down On It, it was like 3 minutes long, and there was no instrumental break in the song whatsoever. So I created my own version by splicing up 1/4-inch tape.
Wow.
And you can imagine, at the time I was going to Miami-Dade communications major, and I didn't really learn anything because I already had 7 years of experience on the radio. At the age of 11, I started on the radio. But I did learn how to tape edit, and that was like, wow. And that actually was the thing that allowed me to create the first 12-inch remix in the history of Kool and the Gang. When I presented it to them, presented it to Khalees, who's the main producer, arranger, and songwriter, and he freaked out. He was like, "How did you get a hold of my masters?" And I'm like, "Well, what's a master?" No idea. It's 2-inch tape where you have the 24
So how old
tracks.
were you at this time?
I was 19.
Wow, and you're impressing Kool and the Gang, the traveling.
Well, listen, I knew it was something valuable because I tested it out on my audience, and I played it on the reel-to-reel, and they were going bananas. So I said, I'm going to meet those guys. I'm going to present it to them. I first called Emir Deodato, who's an amazing, legendary jazz musician, and he was producing them at the time. Back then, there were no cell phones, so I called him at home. He's like, "Come over." And I'm like, "I'm in Miami. I'm 19. It's not like I got, let's just hop on a plane." So I went and met Kool and the Gang instead, and it worked out. Here I am 35 years later.
That's awesome. So you were here, you know, spinning in the clubs in Miami down here. So tell me a little bit about, back in those days in the 80s, What was it like being a DJ in the clubs here?
What was it not like is the real question. If you look in your mind's eye and look at what the media has shown us over the years, for example, Miami Vice, Scarface.
The cocaine cowboys.
We can get to that in a second, but keep in mind, those are actually watered down versions of the truth.
Really?
1,000%. And anybody that lived in that time will agree with me. So I was at the center of all of this, literally. But one of the things I think I was quite fortunate to have experienced is that at the end of the day, we have a lot of things in common as human beings. Unfortunately, we focus on those things that we don't have in common. And I mentioned earlier, music. You know, music doesn't care if you're white, black, tall, short, where you're born, it'll penetrate right through your heart. And because I was a drug dealer, if you will, of music, I was dealing music, I was able to bring lots of people together that normally would not come together. So lawyers, doctors, prostitutes, drug dealers, you name it. And from...
It was a unifying agent.
Absolutely.
Everyone came together.
Yeah. And also from the different communities, because you have to remember, Miami is such a melting pot, literally. It's one of the few places...
Literally, it's so hot here, we're all melting.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the few places where all these cultures come together. So you have the Caribbean. Within the Caribbean, you have Haitians, Dominicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, I could go on, Trinidadians. And then, of course, you have South America. So this type of mixture was something I was normally attracted to because of my personal ethnicity.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you're working on now.
Well, currently, I'm working on a documentary, actually, which talks about my time here in South Florida from 79 to 96, which were the formative years of lots of music and lots of activity. And I'm able to tap into many of the people that I met at that time that I'm still in touch with. One of them, for example, you may have heard this name, Emilio and Gloria Estefan.
They're giant names down here. They're the
Yeah.
king and queen of South Florida.
Absolutely, that's the best way to describe them. Well, at a club called Manhattan, where I played at in 1983, a young lady named Lily, who was their niece, I had no idea, came literally off the Marietta boat lift, and she met my girlfriend at the time, said my aunt and uncle are working on a song. First time they're doing a song in English, they need a little bit of help. So I went to visit them, and I met Gloria and Emilio in a very small home at the time, and I casted their very first video called Dr. Beat.
That's awesome.
I mean, you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah, that's serendipity.
Exactly. That's just one of the little pieces of the puzzle of the time that I spent.
So what years did you say, 79 to 86?
79 to 96.
96,
Yes.
wow. So in that span of music, what do you think is the one single greatest innovation that happened?
I don't think there's been any real innovations, to be honest with you. I mean, listen, somebody out there may disagree with me, but I go back to it. It's all, at the end of the day, melody and words. And that message is carried out throughout the centuries. If you have something that's, let's say, we'll call it classic, because you can only tell a classic after it's become a classic.
Of course.
But at the time when you're creating it, and you're part of that melting pot, if you will, as long as you focus on the positivity of the message, then the rest will take care of itself. So I think everything else is a genre, like I said. If you look at every decade, let's go back to the 50s, right? That was a sound, even though you weren't born, you know the 50s sound. And that was a clear distinction between the 60s, that decade, the hippie movement, and then you went into the 70s, disco, then you went into the 80s, the big hair. You see what I'm saying? So, but at the end of the day, what is it? It's all music. So you could sing a song from the 50s and get the same feeling and emotion and connection that you will get if you sing a song from the 80s. Again, it's whatever is comfortable to your palate.
It's about the emotion, not necessarily the technology behind it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
The
And-
technology is just a way to get it to the people.
Yeah. And I know you work on the documentary, but any music right now, anything in the works?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently working with Robert Coolbell and his wife, Sakina, who, by the way, please put your prayers out there for Sakina, Cool's wife. She has been diagnosed with 2 high-grade glioblastoma tumors.
Oh, that's terrible.
And she was given 2 weeks to live, but God is great, and she's been beating this for the past 8 months.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so Cool for the first time has come off the road in 54 years. He's never been off the road. So he's by her side now. But she and Cool had created a concept called Just Cool, which was to leverage and take advantage of the name and likeness of Kool and the Gang, and specifically Robert Coolbell. So my wife, who started off as my manager, she and I, we got together with the two of them, and we brought it to life. The first thing we did was what's called the Just Cool After Party, which was to do the official Kool and the Gang after parties. For example, in Hong Kong, we performed for 50,000 people. Then the after show was 500 people. So this gave us an opportunity to shake hands and kiss babies, or kiss hands and shake babies, whichever.
Whichever.
Yeah, and this way it allows the people who brought this group to their position in the industry. It gives them an opportunity to interact, as opposed to backstage when they're all sweaty, they don't get a chance to really talk. But we took it and flipped it. Instead of just sitting in a corner like most artists with the entourage and the bottles, talk to the hand, we decided to do a jam session. So I start off by DJing, and I get from behind the turntables and I sing all the hits, Get Down on It, Fresh, Celebration, Cherish. I did a dance version of Cherish. And Amir, Kool's younger brother, gets on the guitar playing live, and Kool, who plays bass in the group, he becomes the mascot on the mic and just goes bananas, and the crowd goes pretty much nuts because they're not used to seeing this brought to life in a nightclub or a lounge atmosphere. So Just Kool is an extension, if you will, the electronic version of Kool and the Gang, whereby we take the music you know and love, and we give it the new sound of today like you've never heard it before, which again is that palette that I was talking to you about.
But it still comes back to the
soul,
melody
to
and the
song.
lyrics.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So when you go, get down on it, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get down on it.
We all will. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
And I hope to talk to you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for your time.